All right, hey guys. So I hope you're all doing well. I'm here today with George, Lou, and John, who worked on Tommy's team, also helped me out with farmlands, production, filming, worked, literally lived.
Up until now.
Lived with Tommy. Up until now, yes. Your employer is just been put in jail, unfortunately. However, just so you know who he is, if you watched the live stream where Tommy was arrested, you can hear him yelling in it, "George, call me a solicitor. George, call me a solicitor." That would be this George right here. Almost immediately after that, you had a flight booked to come out here, unfortunately. So it was all kind of hectic for you. But the reason I wanted to do this stream with you, obviously we have to be extremely careful because George and Kaylin and the rest of Tommy's team are at high risk of also being arrested if they introduced new things that were said in the courtroom on the day that he was put into jail. So what George is going to be talking about today, the information he's going to be introducing, is everything up until the point of the actual sentencing. So you can talk about what happened the actual day of the arrest. And I don't know if I'll be doing super chats, just for everyone to know. So I don't even know how to shut them off, to be honest. I'm not very good with this. So most of this is just going to be George giving you guys as much information about what happened on the day of the arrest, especially because there's been a lot of criticism towards Tommy, of people saying he violated his suspended sentence, of people saying that he was committing all sorts of things that made it so that he was deserved to be arrested. When you actually hear the story, you realize that is not true at all. So George, I'll let you take it away with what happened the day of Tommy's arrest.
So as we've done many times in the past, we decided to go to one of these grooming gang trials. They are happening everywhere in the UK at the moment. There's a BBC documentary actually, which was surprisingly very good, that came out a while ago, called Three Girls, and it's I think they listed 76 towns across the UK that had these trials going on in them. One particularly bad one was happening in a town called Huddersfield, which is in the north of England. We went, when we were with Rebel, we went to actually go and report on it at the beginning. It was 27 men and 2 women. They were in for multiple counts of all of these different things. I can't even say now, because this is the same trial that a year later, this weekend, we decided to go and have a look at it. It was the conclusion of the second group. They decided to try them in 3 groups of 10, the first group, the second group, which has just come to its conclusion, and the third group. So we went along to kind of see what was going on. We had a guy who'd been sitting in the courtroom all week. He'd been giving us the updates, and he advised us that basically the jury has gone out. They're coming back to give their verdict on the Thursday. And we thought, right, if they're not back on the Thursday, then we'll go down on the Friday and see what's going on. So we went down, and Tommy was doing a live stream, and we, knowing that he was on a suspended sentence, knowing this kind of thing had happened before, decided to be really super careful about what was going to go down, what was going to be said.
So just to let people know, the suspended sentence was essentially, I'm sure you've seen videos of Tommy being quite cheeky, where he's yelling at the accused going into courtrooms, saying things like, "Oi, you've been raping kids, have ya?" And those are like some of his most famous videos on YouTube. People are like, finally, someone is going and giving these guys what they deserve, right? But he was like, okay, we can't say anything like that. Got to make sure we have alleged in there. We only say things that the mainstream media are saying. We're very careful to not violate the things that he was originally sentenced for, that was suspended. So
yeah, this case was definitely a marked turn for Tommy. We've been doing a lot of work recently on kind of getting him into the right direction, where he can kind of be a little bit more mainstream, deal with those issues. So we
not go to jail.
I'm not going to jail. You know, I think if anything, this shows how important it is, what we've been doing, and the direction that he's been going in. And the thing that's the kicker, I was talking to you about this earlier, wasn't I? If you watch the live stream, it's actually really dull. It's quite boring. He's not screaming at people. He's, as they go in, he's saying, you know, how do you feel about the trial? What, you know, is that a prison bag that you've got there? You know, in the UK, I don't know about over here, but when you go for your last day of the trial and you think that you're going to be sentenced, you'll go with a prison bag of stuff that you can take in with you. when you get to the prison, you can kind of only have the stuff that you've got with you, only have
Right.
the cash that's in your pocket, which is one of the problems we're facing now with Tommy trying to get phone calls. Is he can only use credit from the cash that he had in his pocket when he got into the court until the court reopens tomorrow and the prison reopens tomorrow, and then we can start kind of getting some of the money that people have donated to him, getting him calls, getting him toiletries, that kind of thing. So he's doing this live stream, and it's really, really tame. He's making the effort. He's saying, you know, they're the alleged rapists, the alleged this, they've been accused of this. That he mentions multiple times, and it has been acknowledged. I can't sort of say
it has been acknowledged in the courtroom that he said alleged, and that he only read things that the mainstream media had already reported.
Yeah.
So
he literally he was literally reading a list from a reputable local newspaper, mainstream media, of the names of the defendants and their charges, and that was in a reputable newspaper. The people from that newspaper were sitting in the courtroom while Tommy was being sentenced, and
there's a really
not a word was said to them.
There's a really great clip. It's on Facebook. I'm not sure if people can find it, but they've got a guy like on the news, mainstream media, TV, reading out the names of the people in this case, saying what they're charged with, talking about Muslim grooming gangs, saying everything that Tommy was saying outside that courtroom, and it's played side by side with Tommy's live stream, and you can't tell the difference. You really can't. Now, here's what was shocking to me, and I want you to talk about this in a second, but so Tommy was actually arrested for breaching the peace. Now, what you guys need to know about that is Tommy was like one of the only people out there on that street that day, other than a couple of his team, including George, and basically people, like 5 people that knew and were friends with Tommy. None of them called the police. No one's peace was breached that day. So I try not to get too much into conspiracies, but I think that maybe the cops were waiting, like watching for a live stream, waiting to see if he did something wrong, and then making up something to come and arrest him.
Yeah, one of the things that's really important as well is the charge was a contempt of court charge. Now that wasn't what he was arrested for. So the contempt of court, if you breach court proceedings, if you're sitting in the courtroom and you start shouting abuse at the defendants, or you start shouting abuse at the judge, it doesn't matter if you're a defendant, if you're a witness, if you're a juror, whatever, you can be held in contempt of court and held till the end of the day, or you can get a prison sentence or anything like that for contempt of court. It's about hindering court proceedings. That is not anything to do with breach of the peace. That is not what he was arrested. You know, he was not arrested for a contempt of court. He was arrested for breaching the peace and inciting with his live stream, and he categorically wasn't doing that. I've been with Tommy when he's been arrested, when he's been detained at protests, when he's been asking controversial questions and he's moved somewhere for his own protection, or detained or whatever. And a lot of the time he gets angry about it and he's frustrated and he's saying, "Why are you doing this? You can't do this." Sometimes he's very, you know, he talks openly at the time about how it's a double standard and it's sort of victimizing people with his political beliefs. And the thing with this, you can see it on the video I recorded of him being arrested, which is all over Facebook and Twitter. He's genuinely confused. He doesn't get it. He knows that he hasn't done anything. He says in the video, "I haven't done anything. I've not said a word." And he hadn't. And it was just so out of the blue that just this huge paddy wagon with 7 or 8 police officers, 7 of them in the video, arresting him. And they're just dragging him around. They're taking his phone from him to stop him from live streaming. And he literally says to them, you know, "Does it feel right, lads? Does it feel right what you're doing?" And you can see these police officers. It's the thing that kills me. You can see them shifting from one foot to the other because they know that it's not. They know that, you know, they're not sitting there watching him and going, "Oh, right, he's breached the peace. Let's go and do something."
Mm-hmm.
You know, they're not seeing a crime unfold in front of them. They have very, very clearly been told, "Go and arrest that man." So they do. They bundle him off. I managed to grab one of the police officers and say, "Where are you taking him? You know, clarify for me what he's being arrested for. Where's he going to be?" They tell me he's going to go to this big police station. So we head down as soon as possible. We call the lawyer, call the family. We head down to the police station, and they have no record of him. They don't know where he is. He's not been booked in. You know, we use Tommy Robinson. We use his real name. We use his family. We use the name, you know, all the different kind of pseudonyms that he's gone by over the years. They have no record of him. they say it can take a little bit of time for someone to get booked in, so maybe come back and check, and we say, okay, we go back and we check, and no record of him. I speak to the lawyer, and the lawyer says that he's been released. So we're thinking, great, they're probably just trying to get him away from the court because it's, a cheap trick that they might use to arrest him for breach of the peace, get him over to the other side of town, and then just release him half an hour later, release him an hour later. So he's away from the court, and we imagined he probably would have been given a dispersal notice, which is basically get out of the city, get out of this area, disperse, or you'll be arrested. Mm-hmm. So we go down to the police station to wait for him. Half an hour goes by, an hour goes by, he's not there. A little while longer goes by, he's not there. We speak to the lawyer again. She's saying, no, I've not heard from him, but they've told me that he's been released. So it's kind of getting a bit weird at this point, but I know that his battery was dying on his phone, as it always is, because he's live streaming constantly. So his battery is probably dead. So we go back to where the court is, go back to the car, and we wait for him there because we think, he's probably going to come back to the car at some point. And then another hour goes by and he's not there. So we start to get panicked, and we're calling the lawyer. We're trying to find out what's going on. We're trying to speak to the court, trying to get in touch with the police, and just nothing. And then someone reached out on Twitter. Thank God, someone reached out on Twitter to say that they'd had the forethought to check the court listings for the day. And at 10 to 2, someone got in touch with us to say that in the last 5 minutes, his name has been added to the court listings for the day. So he's been added to go in at 2 o'clock. And this is 10 to 2. So he's just been quietly.
For people to know, if that guy on Twitter hadn't contacted you, Tommy Robinson literally would have just been disappeared.
Yeah, we wouldn't have known. The police were being cagey. They weren't telling us anything. They'd said that he'd been released, and he just wasn't anywhere. So we got that message. We ran as fast as I've ever run in my life across to the courtroom. Went through security, went upstairs, just about managed to make it into the room. And I can't really talk about what happened there because we face a very real threat of arrest. If we do, the judge was watching from the window for a little while we were live streaming outside, and the judge was making eye contact with me the entire time while he was sort of sentencing Tommy, and he kept looking over and making it very, very clear that there is a very real threat. So there's not a lot that I can talk about in regards of what was said, but this is not
what people should know is apparently, obviously, Tommy never got an opportunity to even contact his lawyer. They take years and years and years to even begin prosecuting these Islamic rape gangs. Years and years and years to begin prosecuting the people who are being investigated for terrorism, just ridiculous crimes in the UK. Of course, much like my detainment and banning from the country, they take years and years and years to find illegal migrants into the country. So why does it happen so quickly when it's right-wing dissidents? Why can they just find a court time for Tommy immediately to get him in prison?
4 hours is unprecedented. To go from an arrest to being sentenced to being in prison is insane in 4 hours. The last time in Canterbury, the contempt of court charge, the suspended sentence, that he was arrested. We got him out at the end of the day. We got him bail, and he went back. I think it was a month, 6 weeks later, something like that. And then that's when he had the actual hearing. That's the way it usually works with these things. You get arrested. You're either remanded into custody, where you stay in custody until your trial, or you're released on bail. He, within the space of 4 hours, had been arrested on something completely different to what he was then hauled in front of the court on, very quietly. I have no doubt that they tried to keep that from us.
Yeah.
And then he's convicted, he's sent down. And it's absolutely terrifying. It's absolutely terrifying that, like you said, if we hadn't been sent that message on Twitter, we wouldn't have known where he was. It's a bank holiday in the UK, which means all the court buildings and all the prisons are now closed until Tuesday, until tomorrow. So we would not have known.
This guy is saying, I'm just curious what you'd have to say to this. He wasn't tried and convicted. He was remanded to custody for a parole violation. Big difference.
So he had the suspended sentence. It was a 3-month suspended sentence. And essentially the idea is that what should have happened in this case, we've spoken with the lawyers about it, if it was about a breach, being arrested for breach of the peace does not constitute a breach of a suspended sentence, by the way. So you wouldn't just get arrested for breaching the peace and then, you know, go
Take
to
it
prison
away
for your
and go to
for your
prison,
suspended
yeah.
sentence. And what should have happened in that case was ordinarily you would be taken back to the court that sentenced you in the first place, and they would say, okay, you've got 6 months of your suspended sentence left, but it was a 3-month suspended sentence, you've breached this, whatever, here you go, here's your sentence, it's no longer suspended, you're going to prison for 3 months. So this is very, very different. It's, from what I gather, it's sort of incorporated into it, but it's not as cut and dry as he, you know, violated his suspended sentence, he breached it, he's gone to prison now.
I also want to point out, like, the big reason I think this live stream is important is because you have all of these critics, some even on the right wing, but most on the left, saying he broke the law, therefore, like, screw him, he deserves to be in jail. But they don't see, like, the nuance in this, the fact that he did try, not just try, he successfully reported on this in a way that it didn't violate his suspended sentence. He avoided all of the restrictions that he had. The fact that, and also I will say, technically, you look at someone like Count Dankula, technically Count Dankula broke the law for hate speech. So that doesn't necessarily mean what has happened is just. That doesn't mean this was a just implementation of the law. We're talking about a man going to a courthouse on the last day. He literally cannot bias the jury. It is the decision day, and he added no new information. So to pretend a man deserves 13 months in jail because he went to a courtroom on the very last day where he couldn't bias the jury at all and repeated information that was already in the mainstream media, it's nonsensical, and everyone knows it. They're just desperately looking for reasons to say he deserves
I think the biggest criticism that I've seen, and I've not seen it from a lot of people, but it's by far and away the biggest criticism that I've seen, is that he could have prejudiced the trial, prejudiced the jury if they saw his video, and then the defense could apply for a mistrial, and that would mean then that, you know, the girls, the victims, would have to be hauled out again. They'd have to dismiss the jury. They'd have to have a new jury. They'd have to redo the whole trial. The girls would have to bring it up and give evidence and go through that whole process again, which isn't something anybody wants, which is why we're so careful, because we learned from the last time, you know, Tommy's never really done, before that Canterbury thing, he's never really done real court reporting. He didn't come up, you know, doing a journalism degree. He's someone who just cared about what was going on in his country and wanted to show people. So it's been a very steep and a very fast learning curve. But the main criticism being that the defense could have asked to have the trial thrown out. Now, yes, it's true. They could have applied for that. They could have used Tommy's live stream as grounds for that. No sane, reasonable judge would ever say, okay, you've applied for it, here you go, it's a mistrial.
Yeah.
All Tommy did was state the names and the charges on the live stream. If you have a jury on the last day of a case who do not know the names or the charges of the defendants, then you are in some serious trouble.
You've got much bigger problems than Tommy running around outside your courthouse.
And that's going to be a much bigger obstruction to justice, and you probably should be doing a bloody retrial anyway at that point.
Yeah.
So I get what people are saying. If he turned up, you know, halfway through and started sharing new information and went to their houses and started looking through their personal possessions or forcing a confession or this, that, or the other, then yes. But going out and reporting the names and the charges and just information that's already out there are no grounds there for a mistrial. It's absolutely ridiculous. It's just people nitpicking because it's people that want to, you know, they want to see Tommy in prison. I've seen in the left-wing press and people on Twitter, people saying, good, I hope he rots. Good, I hope he gets killed. In the last case in Canterbury, in Kent, in the south of England, where he was given the suspended sentence, it was made very, very clear to the judge there that going to prison would be a very, very real threat to Tommy's life. I was talking to you about this before, how there's a very literal bounty that's been on his head when he's been in prison. Something that has been brought up again more recently, should I say, to other legal people. There has been a bounty on his head. Phones, cigarettes, alcohol. People have been offered things for that, literally offered things to be the one to kill Tommy Robinson. We all know there's a massive problem with the radicalization going on in our prisons. There are Islamists who get themselves arrested on petty charges just so they can go into prison for a year, just so they can go in for a year or two and radicalize people. If you're going to be the guy, if you're going to be the guy that kills Tommy Robinson in prison, you're going to be a hero to a hell of a lot of bad people.
Yeah.
That is something that, especially if you've got a prison where you've got people who are in there for 40 years, you know, someone who's in there for 3 years,
They don't have
not
a
really
whole lot
worth
to
it.
lose.
Someone who's in there
Yeah.
for 40 years, nothing's going to stop you killing people, especially if you're in for murder or this, that, or whatever anyway. So it's a very real risk, and it still is. And it's just, that's kind of the crux of this, I think, for a lot of people, is that Tommy should not have been thrown in prison in the first place. It's clearly political. It's clearly persecution. This judge is clearly thinking, I just want to get rid of this guy. He's probably waiting for him to come in. You get the sense from a lot of these judges that they just bloody hate us. They hate us. They hate what we stand for. They hate the fact that, you know, we're out there on social media, that we're out there on Twitter and Facebook, and we're reaching people in a way that the mainstream press have never been able to, because they've always been able to just say, oh, right, Daily Mail, you can't report on this. Oh, you said something? Right, that's it. The Daily Mail, here you go, £200,000 fine. And they've always been able to control people in that way, but now they can't. And I think that's what they're seeing now. That's what we're seeing now with this live stream, with the stuff that you've been doing. It's part of why I've, you know, stuck with the trip to come over here, because there's a lot of people that we're meeting and talking to and getting the story out here. There's been protests in Australia. The Australian media have covered this. There's a huge protest in Tel Aviv, I think yesterday. In Israel, it's everywhere, and there are people all over the world who are reporting this.
It was very
all over the world
cool
talking
to
about
watch
this. Yeah.
Downing Street, to watch the people out there protesting, to see that people are willing to, like, there are people that I believe are even contacting you saying, I've never come to a protest in my life, but I drove hours just to be there. And if I weren't banned from the country, hell, I'd be out there on the street with you guys. But good on you for standing up for freedom at Downing Street. And that's a bit of a white pill too. To see how many people care.
Definitely. I've been talking with Tommy's family. I've been talking with the lawyer, and everyone is just so grateful. Everyone is so grateful for the support, for the donations towards the legal fund, all of it. It's just, I've never seen anything quite like it. When we were with Rebel, we managed to do a bit of crowdfund for his legal defense then, which the bill was huge. We managed to crowdfund that, and there was a lot of support. But this, I've never seen anything like this in my life. It's really quite humbling, given what we do, to see this coming from everybody. We set up a support email, support@tommyrobinson.online, and people have been sending their messages there. There's been literally thousands already. The one you just mentioned there was someone who said, you know, after the Manchester bombing, Tommy, you came up to Manchester and you did that for me, so I've come down to Downing Street for you. So we're getting those printed off. We're giving them to the lawyer. She's going to go in this week, and she's basically just going to deliver a stack of probably about this big, of just the most incredible emails that people have been sending in. So
where can people find this information? What's your Twitter handle so that people can go and find the email? You can get letters to Tommy in jail. Your email's gonna go nuts.
my Twitter is George Llewellyn. You'll probably have to put it in the description or something.
I'll post it on my Twitter. So people @Lauren_Southern, you'll see it up there right after this live stream.
I have one of those horrible sort of old English Welsh double barrel hyphenated name things, and it's horrific whenever I'm trying to spell it to anyone.
But George, thank you so much
for
telling that story.
It's a pleasure. I'm glad I can get it out.
I really hope that you don't get in trouble on the way back.
I might just have to not go back.
Yeah, you can come and stay with us in some safety. I apologize for our Prime Minister here, but it's shockingly not quite as bad in Canada as it is in the UK now.
Oh, this is freedom personified here. It's incredible.
Yeah, but everyone else, thank you so much for watching this live stream. We really just wanted to clear the air on what actually happened that day so that we can kind of stop the rumor mill and the lies and people trying to act like he totally deserved this. So if you can, send some emails over to George so we can get them to Tommy and give him some encouragement in jail. And also share this information. Tell people who are spreading these rumors that they are incorrect. And that's it. Any last comments?
Yeah, Tommy, I've worked with Tommy now for 18 months, and he's a fundamentally good person. He's not just a good person that wants to go and be a national hero or an international hero, as the case now seems to be. He's a family man. He has a wife and kids at home. I've been spending time sitting up for hours with his wife, just trying to give her encouragement, trying to help her with what to say to the kids. So this is not just something to be played out in the media. This is not something to just be played out on Twitter. This is a very real thing that people are really experiencing the consequences. And Tommy is an incredibly high profile journalist. I'm not. Kaylin's not. There are a lot of people who do live streams, who do things themselves, who aren't high profile. And if they can do this to Tommy, then they can do this to all of us. And I think that really is the takeaway here, is that it's a very worrying state of affairs for the UK.
Thank you guys so much for watching. George, once again, thank you so much for joining. And wishing you all the best.
We will make America great again.